This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
This is how we roll. We light it up with our hands up. This is how we roll.
That was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln.
Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women, and I think she should be ashamed of herself.
The countdown to saving America is on. T-minus 28 days until the day of decision. Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
All right, glad you're with us. 28 days to go. I don't know if I even have enough time to lay out the case of how abusively biased and corrupt your news media is, and the case of corruption and lying and cover-up by Democrats and the Hillary Clinton campaign in the next 28 days, never mind in one program. If you never listen to one more hour of this show, ever, if you never listen to one more hour, listen to the last hour of the program today. We are going to have on a woman that I met. I've told you her story in the past. I've never met her before. I met her in St. Louis the other night, Kathy Shelton. Kathy Shelton was 12 years old. Kathy Shelton was raped at the age of 12 by a guy by the name of Thomas Alfred Taylor. The attorney that was brought in the case was Hillary Rodham Clinton. The year is 1975, the year that she married Bill Clinton. And you're going to hear a story that will shock your conscience and soul. For all of you in the media that are, we now know CNN, CNBC, the New York Times, Univision. Let's see, what else do we know here? Boston Globe. You've all been coordinating with her the whole time. We now have the proof. It's called WikiLeaks. People got mad at me when I said Julian Assange is doing a service, and he never did release information that could have gotten people killed, did he? That he probably has. So, you know, when I was critical of him in the beginning, I told him personally that I really worried that innocent people might get killed as a result of what he released. No, but he did say he performed two major public services. And that is, one, that he showed us we have no cybersecurity. When he was 16, he broke into the Defense Department and NASA himself at 16 years of age. So he did us a favor by exposing a country that has no cybersecurity whatsoever. And number two, he was able to show at a level that I never even thought possible as a critic of government just how deeply rooted the corruption is, bordering now on a banana republic. It is so bad. But back to Kathy. Kathy Shelton, 12 years old, raped at the time. Hillary Clinton takes on the case. Fascinating case, she says in the recording. The guy was, accused of raping a 12-year-old. Of course, he claimed he didn't do it, as she's laughing, casually telling the story a few years later. I had him take a polygraph, which he passed, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs, she adds with a laugh. What does that mean? She knew he was guilty. Now, the guy, instead of getting 30 years in prison, ended up getting time served. What does time served mean? 2 months in prison. Guy that she is admitting she knew was guilty. She knew he would have had 30 years to life in prison. Got him down to 2 months, time served. Anyway, so this guy had forced this girl into a car, raped her violently to the point where she, as a result of this rape at 12, was told there's a 99% chance she could never have children, which she was never able to have. It was so violent she needed stitches all around her genital area. for this poor girl. And then Clinton is heard laughing at different points, discussing the crime lab's accidental destruction of DNA evidence that tied Taylor to the crime. Now, they'll confirm this when I interview her, but my understanding and my reading of this is that, in fact, the crime lab was able to identify from Kathy's underwear, not only her blood was there, but also the semen of the guy that was alleged to have raped her, the rapist. Anyway, so after they confirmed who it was, whose blood it was, whose semen it was, well, then Hillary's defense team, well, they went to work and they got all the evidence so that they could test it independently. And lo and behold, it comes back and all the evidence is missing. Wow. And there are the court affidavits in this case. Clinton wrote that she had been informed this 12-year-old girl was, quote, emotionally unstable. That this 12-year-old girl had a tendency to seek out older men and engage in fantasizing. Quote from Hillary, I've been also told by an expert in child psychology that children in early adolescence tend to exaggerate or romanticize sexual experiences, and that adolescents in disorganized families, such as the complainants, are even more prone to exaggerate behavior. You know what that's called? Blaming the victim. Now, you're going to hear from Kathy, also her lawyer and advocate, a woman by the name of Candace. She's going to join us later in the program. You're going to hear from both of them, and they're going to tell their story. Now, I want you to listen. If you only listen to 1 hour of my radio show in your life, listen to this. And I don't know if they're going to be on the full hour. We'll see as how long it takes for them to tell their whole story. But for Hillary Clinton to be laughing about child rape, to be laughing about getting a guy off that she thinks is guilty of child rape, bragging about it, laughing about it, evidence destroyed in the case, blaming the victim in a fierce way. Wow. And I know some of you are really offended by Donald Trump's locker room talk. Really offended. You're so outraged over locker room talk. But I guess this is where we are as a country. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't have a clue. If anyone calls me after the election and says, Hannity, you said we were going to win, I don't have a clue who's going to win this election. I have no idea. I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. And now we have more evidence. What did I say in 2007 and 2008 to you all? I think we were way ahead of the curve. Don't you think, Linda? We were way ahead of the curve in terms of saying what? Journalism is dead. Think of the many questions that they never asked Obama. The only one time they asked about his friendship, the speeches he gave, the boards he sat on, starting his political career in the home of an unrepentant terrorist. He got asked that question one time, and I take credit for it because George Stephanopoulos was on this radio show the day before that debate, and I told George, and George didn't even know about Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn.
There are two questions that I don't think anybody has asked Barack Obama, and I don't know if this is going to be on your list tomorrow. One is the only time he's ever been asked about his association with Bill Ayers, the unrepentant terrorist from the Weather Underground, who on 9/11 of all days in the New York Times was saying, I don't regret setting bombs. I don't think we did enough. When asked about it by the Politico, David Axelrod said they have a friendly relationship and that they had done a number of speeches together and that they sat on a board together. Is that a question you might ask?
Well, I'm taking notes right now.
September 11, 2001, of all days, there was an article in the New York Times, and there are a number of quotes about Bill Ayers, and the Politico had in there the comments about from David Axelrod. I think that's an interesting question that nobody in the media has really brought up. We've highlighted a little bit more here on this program, but let me see if I can help you. You want any more questions?
Yeah, keep going.
The Chicago Reader talked about and has comments of Barack Obama why he attended the Million Man March. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know that, I don't think.
That's pretty. Didn't he write about that in his book?
I don't remember that in particular, but I know that he was quoted extensively in the Chicago Reader, December 8th, I forget the year, going back a couple of years. Mm-hmm. My memory's not that good, George.
So I gave George the suggestion. Now, you notice in that at that point, he'd never heard about Bill Ayers. He'd never heard about Bernardine Dorn. He'd never heard about the fact that Obama had started his career in the home of unrepentant terrorists. He didn't know that he sat on boards with Ayers, with Bill Ayers. He didn't know that he gave speeches with Ayers. I mean, that's a pretty extensive, friendship between the two of them. They never asked him about his comment about a typical white grandmother. What's a typical white grandmother? Never asked about his question, about his comments, white folks' greed runs a world in need. They took for granted. He said, I barely knew the guy, Jeremiah Wright. But yet his speech, Audacity of Hope, or what was the name of the book? Dreams. Yeah, I think it was Audacity of Hope, was taken right out of a Reverend Wright speech. We looked into his belief. He even talked in his books about black liberation. They never asked him. So the only time they asked about his relationship with an unrepentant terrorist was because I told George Stephanopoulos to ask it. Listen.
On this issue, general theme of patriotism in your relationships, a gentleman named William Ayers. He was part of the Weather Underground in the 1970s. They bombed the Pentagon, the Capitol, and other buildings. He's never apologized for that. And in fact, on 9/11, he was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I don't regret setting bombs. I feel we didn't do enough." An early organizing meeting for your state Senate campaign was held at his house, and your campaign has said you're friendly. Can you explain that relationship for the voters and explain to Democrats why it won't be a problem?
This is a guy who lives in my neighborhood, who's a professor of English in Chicago, who I know and who I have not received some official endorsement from. He's not somebody who I exchange ideas from on a regular basis. And the notion that somehow, as a consequence of me knowing somebody who engaged in detestable acts 40 years ago when I was 8 years old, somehow reflects on me and my values doesn't make much sense, George. This kind of game in which anybody who I know, regardless of how flimsy the relationship is somehow their ideas could be attributed to me. I think the American people are smarter than that. They're not going to suggest somehow that is reflective of my views, because it obviously isn't.
So he starts his political career in the guy's house, sits on boards with the guy, gives speeches with the guy, and he's just some guy in the neighborhood, some flimsy relationship. If it was Donald Trump, do you think he would have been asked more than once? And which gets me to my point. I said journalism is dead. Well, what have we learned today from the WikiLeaks dump? We learned that debate moderators were aligned with Hillary's campaign. We got documents now that prove how corrupt and biased your media is. For example, on full display in the second debate, part of the latest email campaign, the media alliance we now see, but Clinton on numerous media outlets, etc., that internal documents demonstrate a central component of the Clinton campaign strategy is ensuring that journalists that they believe are favorable to Clinton are tasked to report the stories the campaign wants circulated. Wow. And then the document can be seen here. Then they label the names of the people. Right? It's so many of them. John Heilemann, Rachel Maddow, Ruth Marcus, Chris Matthews, Dana Milbank, Andrea Mitchell, Nora O'Donnell, Robin Roberts, Eugene Robinson. Let's see. Jeff Zeleny, Karen Tumulty, George Stephanopoulos, Mara Liasson, John Carl, John Heilemann, Chris Hayes, Mark Halperin, Ron Fournier, Howard Feynman, Ronan Farrow, Maureen Dowd, E.J. Dion, Mika Brzezinski, Wolf Blitzer. I mean, it goes on and on. Then what else did we learn? We learned, in fact, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are now funding ISIS. And Hillary knew it. Why did she accept money from the Saudis if she knew that? We learned that Univision was urging Hillary to hit Trump harder. We learned that John Harwood of CNBC, even though he's a debate moderator, is caught on these WikiLeaks advising her campaign. We know the New York Times was giving Hillary veto power on their quotes. Hey, Jim Rutenberg from the New York Times, you wouldn't put one of my quotes in. Not one. I gave you an hour. I wasted my time talking to you. Unbelievable. And we got the Boston Globe coordinating to maximize her presence in the paper. And then we've got, oh, poor Donna Brazile. I saw her the other night. I've always liked Donna. I've got along with her. I know she's a hardcore liberal. She was busted. The DNC chief shared CNN town hall questions. Now, she put out a statement denying she gave debate questions. She didn't mention town halls. Use Benghazi as a distraction from the email scandal. 4 dead Americans used as an excuse not to talk about her emails. And, of course, the campaign was also caught discussing it all with the Department of Justice. We're cooked. It's such a conspiracy at such a high level. It exposes such deep corruption, such absolute collusion, colluding with the White House, colluding with the Department of Justice, colluding with the FBI, colluding with abusively biased, corrupt media. Donald Trump said yesterday, if it wasn't for the media, I'd be up 10 points. We know now the media is in her pocket. And what I said 8 years ago is more relevant today than when I told you then. Journalism is dead. And who's come under more fire in this campaign? Me. The only difference between me and them is I'm honest. I'm a conservative. I tell you who I'm voting for and why. No pretense, no make pretend, no lying. You get what you see what you get. Your soul, your solar plexus should be shocked. Your ancestors should feel the vibrations of corruption that your government, your candidates, your political system, your media is so disgustingly dirty and corrupt and up to their eyeballs in corruption. I don't know if Trump can overcome it. And on top of that, you got Republicans. They, too, are up to their eyeballs in conspiring against Trump. So disgusting. Your country's going down the tubes.
We know you never want to miss the Sean Hannity Show. And now you never have to. Just sign up for Hannity Headlines. A bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you on your laptop, your mobile phone, everywhere you go. Even to your liberal in-laws' place in Vermont.
Yeah.
And after a few hours of that, you'll be glad you brought Sean along. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com.
All right, 25 till the top of the hour. Well, I see this. Hillary Clinton has said that she found Donald Trump's use of the P word, which we now know that Barack Obama uses, in his hot mic video, horrific. Shouldn't be president. Apparently, she doesn't mind accepting money and the endorsements of rap stars like Snoop Dogg and 50 Cent, that use the same words. Double standard. What did I say? Feigned outrage, selective moral outrage. WikiLeaks points out Hillary's speeches, including cues on when she should smile. You want to talk about a phony plastic politician? That's Hillary. Email between Podesta and Clinton's campaign communications director Jennifer Palmieri seemed to indicate that Clinton was already worrying as early as the Iowa caucuses that she was too scripted, too stiff, unable to sound convincing when she talked about her friends in the cornfields and main streets of middle America. In some of her speeches, she even had to be told when to smile. By July of 2015, one of Podesta's confidants, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, was telling the campaign that Clinton feels stale, with very few signs of the kind of freshness and transparency that the American people, especially millennials, will need to trust and ultimately elect Hillary as president. In yesterday's second batch of emails, Podesta's conversations with Bill Clinton's close aide, Bill Ivey, showed the team was concerned about the American people might be too ill-informed to pick up on Hillary's lofty language. She was simply too smart for them. And in speech transcripts released on Friday, Hillary Clinton herself admitted to a crowd of Wall Street bankers from Goldman Sachs, I'm kind of far removed from the middle class because of the life I live, the fortunes my husband and I now enjoy, et cetera, et cetera. And she's also told when to smile. So CNN yesterday got a trouncing. Trump pointed out the corruption in the media. I think he's right at this point. Now with the revelation that Univision, they were advising the Clinton campaign, NBC was advising the Clinton campaign, even their debate moderator, John Harwood, was doing it. New York Times giving her veto power, the Boston Globe coordinating to maximize how great she looks and being told when to smile. And you got Donna Brazile may have shared questions before a town hall. She says she didn't, but certainly looks like she did. And using Benghazi, the death of 4 people, as a distraction. Wow. And then the campaign discussions with the DOJ. Well, White House, no comment on communications during the investigation because they were caught too. Then we see leaked emails show Facebook executives, in this case Sheryl Sandberg, sharing research with the Clinton campaign. Isn't that a donation? I had to pay $100,000 defending myself because I put my friend John Gomez's website on my website, a link to his website. Cost me $100,000 in attorney fees because the head of the New York Democratic Party said it was an in-kind donation because I did that. Anyway, the cameras, as if, it's just unbelievable. You can't distract me. I got to focus. Anyway, so Sheryl Sandberg shared research with key members of the Clinton campaign. We have 10,000 supporters at Pennsylvania Trump rally in Wilkes-Barre saying, what? CNN sucks. CNN is apparently very pissed about that. And I think it was, who was it? Chris Cuomo was saying, I get why people criticize the media. It's often with good reason, but I think this is very high on the list of irresponsible things this guy has done. He offered to the agreement of his fellow CNN counterparts. Oh, it's not. I mean, Trump can't make them chant. We now have major news media organizations that are basically in the effort of using their objective media platform to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, this is unbelievable what we're discovering here. It shows CNN helping Hillary cheat at the debate. Even Mediaite had a good piece on this. One of the emails in the Podesta document dumped today shows that when Donna Brazile was still at CNN this year, before she became the DNC chairman, she gave the Clinton campaign a heads up about one of the CNN town hall questions. She denies it, but seems like she did because the email in question was sent on March 12, 2016, one day before the CNN Democratic town hall. Brazile flagged this topic and said, here's one that worries me about Hillary Rodham Clinton. Oh. Univision chief urging the Clinton camp to hit Trump. Haim Sabam reached out to Clinton's camp last year after Trump said some illegal immigrants from Mexico are drug dealers and rapists, some. Uma Abedin, the Clinton campaign's vice chairwoman, said in a separate message that Saban had made a similar overtures to her. If Haim is raising it, it means he's hearing it from his Univision colleagues. By the way, the guy gave millions to pro-Clinton super PACs like Priorities USA. Haim is right. We should be jamming this all the time, Jennifer Palmieri said, Clinton's communication director. Isn't that nice that the media helps so much? That's NBC, too, Univision. Wow. Pretty nice, everybody. Jake Tapper had a little cozy relationship with John Podesta, congratulated him on his White House appointment. NBC's John Harwood advised the Clinton campaign and gloated about provoking Trump at the debate. He bragged about his much criticized debate performance in which he asked Trump, let's be honest, is this comic book version of a presidential campaign? In an email from Harwood, it says, I imagine, and continued the sentence in the body of the email, writing that Obama feels some vindication at this demonstration of his year-long point about opposition party veering off the rails. Oh, isn't NBC proud today? Aren't they proud? The New York Times giving Hillary veto power. You know, these exchanges were pretty interesting. Would love the option to use. Oh, would you like to pick them? I've been interviewed by the New York Times. Trust me, I'm never given the option to pick and choose what they print. They pick whatever they want to make me look bad. Boston Globe coordinating on how to maximize Hillary's presence. That's really nice of them. Is that an in-kind donation? Why did I have to pay $100,000? I'm a conservative. Good grief. Clinton campaign is in a Twitter war over the WikiLeaks. Now we've got the campaign opened a nasty Twitter war with WikiLeaks today and yesterday amid the leak of John Podesta's emails. You got this guy, Brian Fallon, accusing the group of being a propaganda arm for Moscow. Well, it's sort of like the right-wing conspiracy. The campaign, we discovered, there was new evidence that the Clinton campaign was coordinating with super PACs. That's in there, too. Whoopsie-daisy. That would be a crime. Shocking. Also, people in the Clinton camp said Bill's sex life is a liability. And the White House was coordinating with Clinton and the campaign on TPP messaging, you know, the gold standard that Hillary now denies. And they also suggest David Brock is a Republican plant. I can assure you that's not true. Anyway, one of the emails shows Hillary Clinton praising Vladimir Putin.
This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
Was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln.
Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women, and I think she should be ashamed of herself.
The countdown to saving America is on. T-minus 28 days until the day of decision. Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Our next president faces daunting challenges in a dangerous world. Iran promoting terrorism, North Korea threatening, ISIS on the rise, Libya and North Africa in chaos. Hillary Clinton failed every single time as Secretary of State. Now she wants to be president. Hillary Clinton doesn't have the fortitude, strength, or stamina to lead in our world. She failed as Secretary of State. Don't let her fail us again.
So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of the great people of Pennsylvania. I went to school in Pennsylvania. They've taken our jobs out of Pennsylvania. We're going to be bringing them back, folks. Believe me. We're bringing them back. Oh, what these politicians have done to us. Not going to happen much longer. So everybody saw the debate last night. So let me tell you. When I said we are going to get a special prosecutor to figure this deal out, I have never been so ashamed of this country as what's gone on with Hillary Clinton. I have never seen anything like it. I have never, ever seen anything like it. You have never seen anything like it. They are so dishonest. Without the media, Hillary Clinton couldn't be elected dog catcher. I mean that. It's true.
All right, hour two, Sean Hannity Show. That was Donald Trump. Boy, I'm telling you, it is nobody can make a prediction on this election. And then the crowd last night started chanting, CNN sucks. Of course, CNN is complaining about it. And we now have evidence through WikiLeaks that we have one news organization after another, including CNN, that have been colluding the entire time with the Clinton campaign. We have hacked emails showing that CNN helped Hillary cheat at a debate. One of the emails in the Podesta document dump shows that when Donna Brazile was still at CNN before becoming the interim DNC chair, that she gave the Clinton campaign a heads up about one of the CNN town hall questions that they should expect. Now, the email in question, one day before the CNN Democratic town hall, Brazile flagged this topic and said, well, here's one that worries me about Hillary. And yes, the death penalty was one of the topics addressed the next day. That's not the only one. We have hacked emails showing John Podesta revealing collusion with NBC News. You ever needed more evidence about the mainstream media's complete and total corruption or validation of what I said in 2007 and 8, that journalism is dead? Well, you got a new batch of emails show that sympathetic and complimentary emails sent by the New York Times contributor and CNBC host John Harward to Hillary's campaign manager, John Podesta. And Harwood was dismissive of the controversy surrounding Clinton, even criticizing his own outlet on more than one occasion. I must say, he says to Podesta, that though I don't know the terms, I find it weird that the New York Times made some sort of deal with the guy writing the book. Harwood emailed in April, a apparent reference to the Times' decision to collaborate with Peter Schweitzer, who wrote Clinton Cash. In another email, Harwood trashed the New York Times for reporting that Joe Biden was considering entering the race. And perhaps the most troubling is Harwood trashed Donald Trump to Podesta. I imagine that Obama feels some vindication at the demonstration of his year-long point that the opposition party is veering off the rails, he said. I certainly am feeling that way with respect to how I questioned Trump at our debate. Wow. Then we've got a report that Univision chief was urging the Clinton camp to hit Trump, according to these hacked emails. And again, Donna Brazile shared a question before the town hall that took place. And it goes on. And the New York Times gave Hillary veto power over the things that they were running. And the Boston Globe coordinated with how to maximize Hillary's presence. I mean, this is beyond corruption on a level that we've never seen before. And that doesn't even touch on the surface of Hillary praising Vladimir Putin, the very thing she's been attacking Donald Trump for. Or bragging that, yeah, you've got to take one position privately and a very different position behind the scenes. Or the fact that she wants open borders in the entire Western Hemisphere, which would mean 600 million people have access to the United States. Here to try and sort all of this out for us is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. You know, for all these years, I have been making the case journalism is dead, and I feel vindication on a level that I never thought I would feel. But more importantly, sadness that it is worse than I ever thought.
Well, look, I think that you have to understand that the news media is Hillary Clinton. Not that they like her. They are her. It's their world. It's their machine. It's their social relationships. It's their parties. You have, very important newsman who gives $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation, but pretends he's neutral. The fact is, you have the brother of the number 2 person in the National Security Council is the head of CBS News. But we're supposed to believe they don't collude, they don't compare notes. NBC held a tape for 11 years, and it happened to break and happened to be the center of the news media the same day as the WikiLeaks of Hillary Clinton's secret speeches, so that they could cheerfully avoid covering Hillary while trying to destroy Donald Trump. And we all are supposed to believe this is all an accident. What you have is a system of left-wing thought in which well over 80%, maybe as high as 90% of the news media will vote against Trump while asking us to believe that they're somehow neutral. Well, they're not. They are the active opponents of conservatism. They're the active advocates of liberalism, and they've gotten worse over the years. And you saw it in both the first 2 debates at the presidential level, where he had to go up against Lester Holt and Hillary Clinton in the first debate, and Trump had to go up against both Martha Raddatz and Anderson Cooper, as well as Hillary Clinton in the second debate. It was very one-sided in how they would get involved and how they would ask questions and how they would argue.
Let me give you some more details of what we have. Number one, we know from the earlier WikiLeaks that she was coordinating and cheating poor Bernie Sanders out of votes, and that there was coordination going on there. Also that she was very worried about Elizabeth Warren. But one of the most troubling was in the Hill today, that in an email from May of 2015, the Clinton campaign spokesman, Brian Fallon, said, quote, the DOJ folks had informed him of an upcoming status conference in one of the lawsuits regarding Clinton's private email server setup. Now, on top of that, we have Hillary Clinton's speeches, including cues on when she should smile. I want to talk about a phony politician. Then we've got Hillary in these leaked emails understanding that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are funding ISIS. Well, then that raises to a whole new level the millions of dollars that she took from Saudi Arabia for the Clinton Foundation as well as for the Clinton Library. And then on top of that, we see the State Department coordinated the email release with the Clinton campaign. I mean, this is beyond every one of these things potentially is a law broken. And to sort this out would take a lifetime. It's so
No,
incestuous.
I don't think what it's going to take is a series of independent counsels. And then I thought Trump the other night began to move beyond politics into history because he was raising the right level of intensity. We need an independent counsel for the Veterans Administration, an independent counsel for the Internal Revenue Service, an independent counsel for the State Department. Just go down the list. And these people broke the law, and therefore, and it's clear that Comey has corrupted the FBI. It's the worst performance by an FBI director in the history of the agency. The agreements that they made are beyond imagining, and you need an independent counsel that looks at the relationship between the Justice Department and the FBI. Were they making really strange, unique deals with the Clinton staff because they were under a direction to do so? We also have to have, frankly, the current Attorney General subpoenaed and testifying under oath. What was the meeting like with Bill Clinton? Why did they meet for an hour just before Hillary Clinton was interviewed? And both Bill and the Attorney General should be subpoenaed under oath because this stuff is so strange and so sick and so corrupt. It resembles a third world country.
Look at this also. Leaked emails reveal Hillary Clinton hates the phrase everyday Americans. I think it was, who was this, Jennifer Palmieri and John Podesta having an exchange. I know she's begun to hate everyday Americans, but I think we should use it once, the first time she says, I'm running for president because you and everyday Americans need a champion, Podesta replied. Truth, Palmieri says. And then it also, we see in these emails that they outlined an effort to basically produce and run a campaign to the unaware and compliant citizenry. In other words, the dumb masses. Let's be honest what they're saying here.
Right. And, of course, the challenge for Trump is simple. He's got to have a strong enough social media campaign. He's got to have a clear enough and repetitive enough series of speeches that we break through to every American, because the American people aren't dumb. They may be uninformed. I used to really use a book by a Democratic consultant called The Election Game and How to Win It. And one of his points was you should never underestimate the intelligence of the American people, nor overestimate the amount of information they have. If every American knew 6 or 8 key facts about Hillary Clinton, despite the news media, they would defeat her in a landslide. And the job of the Trump team in the next 14 days, and it's got to be done in 14 days because you have so much early voting. You can't wait for Election Day. Their job is to figure out what are the 5 to 7 things that guarantee you will not vote for Hillary, and make sure that every American knows those 5 to 7 things.
You know, I have another email here that shows, guess what? Hillary Clinton is praising Vladimir Putin. Now, what have we just heard in every debate? Oh, Donald Trump said nice things about Vladimir Putin. Well, you know, she described him, and Putin invited her to what she described was his private inner sanctum, and how much she praises him. I mean, I'm trying to understand. It's just so corrupt. This is, you know, the whole foundational understanding of her describing in one of the Wall Street speeches that you take one position privately that's very different from what you say publicly. Shows such a contempt and hatred of the American people and the system that's supposed to govern us. It's the antithesis of we the people. It's we the elites. It's we the arrogant. It's we the almighty and all-powerful.
But, you know, one of the things you have to remember that I think has been a challenge for Trump is there are so many different things you could hit Hillary on that it becomes clutter. And if you're a normal American, you know, you get 30 of these things, you gradually begin to say, well, it's just noise. I think part of what they've got to figure out is what are the 5 to 7 that really cut through. I just had somebody at a luncheon speech here in New York City remind me that the challenge in Haiti, where 1,000 people have been killed, where you see all of this devastation, this is after 10 years of the Clinton Foundation supposedly helping the island. And there's no better example of the Clintons exploiting the poor and ripping them off than Haiti. Well, that would require Trump to focus on telling that story, which is, by the way, a devastating story of corruption and dishonesty and failure, in which a bunch of rich folks ripped off, very poor Haitians who don't have much to start. We're given all these promises.
Well, let me ask you this. Now we've got a Republican Party that has turned their back on Donald Trump in a very dramatic fashion. Now, you and I both agree that the Republican Party has shown nothing but ineptness, weakness, fecklessness, spinelessness over the Obama years. How could anybody have any faith in these guys at all? They're not they would rather Hillary Clinton get elected than to defend Donald Trump.
Well, look, I disagree with you a little bit. I don't use the term the Republican Party. Most Republican members of Congress have stuck with Trump. Reince Priebus last night had a conference call with all of his committee members and said, look, Trump is our nominee. He won it fair and square. We are totally for him. And if you can't be for Donald Trump, you ought to resign from the Republican National Committee.
So maybe that should be Paul Ryan?
Well, I think Ryan's got to really rethink what he said in the last 2 days because, you know, he can't be in a position of suggesting that Hillary Clinton winning is okay. But I would do that to all of these guys. I mean, I think the Trump campaign ought to be communicating through its tremendous Twitter and Facebook system. It ought to communicate in every single district and state in the country. You know, go tell your member they need to help beat Hillary Clinton. Don't ask them to be for Donald Trump.
All right.
Tell them they got to go beat Hillary Clinton. They beat Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump will be president.
By the way,
it's easier to focus people on beating Hillary, where it is inexcusable. Any Republican who favors Hillary Clinton winning ought to become a Democrat.
By the way, Newt Gingrich is going to be a book review tonight. I assume you're giving a speech as well, and he has his brand new book out, which is called Treason, and his wife Callista is going to be there. Interestingly, in this election season, she has a new children's book called Hail to the Chief. I'll let you describe that when we get back, but you're going to be at book review in Huntington tonight at 7 o'clock. And I've been there many times myself. Great crowds there. Wednesday, tomorrow, you're going to be at Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey at 7 o'clock. And we'll talk to you about that when we get back.
Great.
And 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. The books are on Hannity.com. You can get them at Amazon.com now if you want.
We know you never want to miss the Sean Hannity Show. And now you never have to. Just sign up for Hannity Headlines, a bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you on your laptop, your mobile phone, everywhere you go, even to your liberal in-laws' place in Vermont.
Yeah.
And after a few hours of that, you'll be glad you brought Sean along. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com. Your heart be troubled. Join Sean's Army on Twitter, where we get back to conservative values.
You know, in the 1940s, there were real Soviet agents in the American government. So I asked the question, what would happen if ISIS had agents inside our government today? This could be a very real threat. And my new novel, Treason, shows you what could happen in tomorrow's news.
All right, 25 now till the top of the hour. Newt Gingrich is back with us. He has a brand new book out, and he's on a book tour right now. He's going to be at book review in Huntington, Long Island tonight at 7 o'clock. Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey tomorrow night at 7. His wife, also Callista, wrote Hail to the Chief. Newt's book is called Treason. It's up on Hannity.com right now. It is interesting how your mind works as somebody who's known you all of these years, because you, number one, are a historian. Number two, you follow events, modern-day events, as closely as anybody I know, and all of this twisted, dark thinking makes its way into your books. But it makes its way in there in a way that really forces reality and truth onto people, whether they want it or not.
Well, you know, that's one of the virtues of writing fiction, is you can get people into an action-adventure cycle where they get totally absorbed. And then at the end of it, they've learned stuff that really does get them to think. You know, Tom Clancy had a commercial airliner hit the U.S. Capitol in one of his novels, and unfortunately, a lot of our guys weren't clever enough to realize that that was a real possibility before. That was long before 9/11. So first with Duplicity last year, where I began to look at the whole issue of loyalty, and we had a Somali-American patriot running for Congress while his brother was the number 2 leader of a terrorist group in Somalia, and that got all involved in a presidential campaign. This year with Treason, we're building on that and growing it even more. And we want people to think about a very profound fact. We know from the archives of the Soviet Union that there were probably 500 Soviet agents in the United States at its peak in the 1940s, and that many of them were very deep and had very important positions. So I just asked the question, what if you had a couple of people who either for money or for ideology decided they were on ISIS's side and served as agents inside the government? And treason explores the danger of that happening. I'm very excited by it. It is remarkably different from Callista's book, Hail to the Chief. But the adults hopefully will like mine, and the 4 to 8-year-olds love hers.
Well, so when are you doing a country-wide book tour, or are you just doing a few select stops?
No, we're going all over the place, and we're here and in New Jersey. We're going to be in Pennsylvania. We'll be down at Williamsburg. We're going to be out at the Nixon Library and the Reagan Library next week. So we'll be a number of different places all over the country. And, of course, everybody who's listening to us can go to their local bookstore. They can go to Amazon. We're very excited to have a chance to meet with folks. And Calista and I will both be greeting people and getting pictures with them and signing books tonight in Huntington and tomorrow night in New Jersey.
The one thing I'm going to need in 28 days is a novel to read. I won't have time beforehand, but I'm going to read it right after, I promise. Anyway, I love your writing. I've read all your other books, so they've all been amazing, and they have great historical references. And Callista's, by the way, this is now what in a series on Ellis the Elephant?
Well, this is number 6, and let me let her tell you about it.
Okay, great. Hey, Callista, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
All right, Ellis the Elephant makes a return. Here we are 28 days before an election, and we're calling it Hail to the Chief, I guess appropriately titled.
Absolutely. This is the 6th volume in my Ellis the Elephant series, and this is a series that offers a guided tour of American history for 4 to 8-year-olds. And in this book, Ellis meets some of America's greatest presidents and discovers how they've led our country throughout American history.
And you actually go around with the elephant with you. I mean, the elephant shows up at a lot of these events, right? Is the elephant going to be at Book Review tonight or at Bookends tomorrow?
Well, Ellis is resting at home in Washington, but he will come out occasionally. We just had him at the National Book Festival in Washington, and the kids really enjoyed him.
And are you going also to the Nixon Library and the Reagan Library also?
That's right. This is a joint book tour, and we always have a good time together.
Yeah, well, that's pretty awesome. And by the way, kids need books that they can read. Kids, especially books that are going to teach them a little bit about history, right?
That's right. In just a few weeks, our country will choose its 45th president, and it's so important for our young people to understand what the presidency means, and to do so, they really need to learn about our greatest president. And Hail to the Chief will help them do just that.
All right, Callista, the book is called Hail to the Chief. It's up on my website, Hannity.com, Amazon.com. Again, they're going to be at Book Review in Huntington tonight at 7. Book ends in Ridgewood, New Jersey tomorrow at 7, and next week at the Reagan and Nixon libraries, and you don't want to miss it. Newt's book is called Treason. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Have a great tour, and I'm sure I'll be checking in often with both of you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, 800-941-SEAN is our number. Let's get to our busy telephones. Bob is in Levittown, New York, listening to the all-new AM 710 WOR, the voice of New York, New Jersey, and, of course, Long Island. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Sean. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on?
Sean, I was one of those undecideds until the debate on Sunday night, and I'm now going to vote for Trump for a variety of reasons. But my wife has been in Trump's corner all along, and she had some thoughts. She had 3 ideas for Trump. When she talks about she being Clinton about the emails, and she said she made a mistake, my wife really pointed something out and said that Trump should have turned around to her and said, you made 33,000 mistakes, not just one. And I think Trump, would be wise to say something like that. The other thing is Fox News and Chris Wallace have an opportunity on Sunday where the moderators have consistently, aggressively gone after him. Will Chris Wallace ask the question of Hillary Clinton, did you abuse and offend and debase the women who accused your husband of sexual assault? Will Chris Wallace have the courage to ask that, Sean?
I have found Chris Wallace to have an enormous amount of courage when it comes to asking questions. I honestly don't know where he stands politically. I mean, if I had to guess, he probably thinks I'm a nut, a right-wing nut job. I don't know. But I don't think he's anybody that's afraid. I think he'll ask. He's not going to seek out my advice on questions, but I've watched him do interviews before, and he doesn't seem to shun asking tough questions, and I would expect both sides, they should expect tough questions from him. That's what he's always done, and I don't think he's going to change his style now.
So you think he'll ask that specific question?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I only see him like once every 4 years at events. I'm not close to him. I don't know him that well. I mean, we have a cordial relationship. But I've watched the show enough to know that he never shies away from asking a tough question. So if I was Trump, I would expect tough questions. If I was Hillary, I'd expect tough questions.
Well, remember when you said you boxed in Stephanopoulos?
Yes.
Back when he debated,
This is the Sean Hannity Show podcast.
Was something I said about Abraham Lincoln after having seen the wonderful Steven Spielberg movie called Lincoln.
Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women, and I think she should be ashamed of herself.
The countdown to saving America is on. T-minus 28 days until the day of decision. Freedom is back in style. Welcome to the revolution.
We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America. Coming up next, our final news roundup and information overload hour.
News Roundup, Information Overload Hour, 800-941-SEAN is a toll-free telephone number. So I have been telling you now for a long time the story about Kathy Shelton. And when I was at the debate on Sunday night in St. Louis, I had an opportunity to meet Kathy Shelton. And I also, again, met Kathleen Willey and Juanita Broderick, and Paula Jones was there, although I didn't see her, and I've interviewed her a number of times over the years. The story about Kathy Shelton is particularly heartbreaking and egregious. And, I just went over how the media has been colluding this entire campaign with the Clintons, which is why they've never asked any of the tough questions throughout the campaign for a lot of different reasons, as we pointed out here. I mean, we got this big document dump, and what do we find out? That we got Univision urging Clinton to hit Trump harder. You've got CNN, literally colluding, giving out questions ahead of time to the Clinton campaign. You got John Harwood advising the campaign, and yet he's a moderator. You got the New York Times giving the Hillary camp veto power. You got the Boston Globe coordinating to maximize her presence in the paper. You got Donna Brazile, who's now the DNC chief, sharing town hall questions. How can she still have a job there? I've known Donna Brazile over the years. She's a hardcore Democrat. I saw her the other day. We get along fine. We've always gotten along. I know she's a hardcore Democrat. She doesn't apologize for it, but you can't be a journalist. On CNN, are you going to give away the questions? Imagine if I gave away Chris Wallace's questions to Donald Trump. By the way, Chris Wallace would never share the questions with me, ever. But I don't even talk to him. And not because we never see each other. He's in Washington. It just would never happen. Anyway, and how they leaked Sanders dirt. And why didn't the media cover all of this? Well, we have the story of Kathy Shelton and Hillary Clinton in the early 80s. Hillary Clinton, as a favor, ends up becoming the attorney that represents a rapist of this 12-year-old girl who we now know as Kathy Shelton. And by the way, if you look at the recording, she's since been asked about it. And what does she do? She brags about the fact that she knew he was guilty. She laughs that she got off this child rapist in the tape. Now, first we're going to hear from Kathy Shelton on tape, and then we're going to hear Hillary Clinton bragging about getting off somebody she knew was guilty and laughing about it. And then we're going to interview Kathy Shelton and her attorney. All right, that's all coming up. Listen to these tapes.
And after laughing on that tape and stuff, she's pretty well stuck in knowing that she lied, knowing that it happened to me. It's horrible, because she's supposed to be for women and children, and here she is saying, well, I know they did it, but I defended them anyway. And I think she got them both off on the technicality of losing something and she lost it on purpose. It wasn't lost. How could all this stuff get lost all of a sudden? I tried to get the hospital records, and they supposedly have been lost in a flood. And as you have told me, you tried to get the police report, and it was lost in a flood. Supposedly that's what happened to this, too. I don't think she's for women for girls. I think she's lying. I think she's doing anything she can to get in the campaign and win. If she was, she wouldn't have done that to me at 12 years old. It's put a lot of anger back in me. And every time I see her on TV, I just want to reach in there and grab her, but can't do that. I couldn't do that if I was in person, to keep out of trouble. But my thing is I want to outspeak to the world out there at the White House where everybody can hear me on TV, and I really want to do this and let them know, what she's done to me, because I think a lot of people would look at her in a different way. I had nightmares, and when I'd ride my bicycle or anything like that, I would stay right there where my mom could see me, or I didn't deserve it. I mean, I was scared. I was totally freaked out, and I went through counseling, and for years I would hardly even be around men. If they tried to touch me or anything, I would just walk away.
The prosecutor called me years ago and said that he had a guy who was accused of rape, and the guy wanted a woman lawyer. And I knew it as a favor to him.
That's really awesome.
You remember that case where I represented that guy? It was a fascinating case. It was really an interesting case. This guy was raped 12-year-old. He was the daughter of a family he was living in Springfield with, on the side of the track. And the guy was from Green Forest. His family still had a little farm. He was one of these ruthless folks who wasn't going to make a living on the land. He was kind of around. Ended up in Springfield working for the place. Of course, he claimed that he did all this stuff. He took a lie detector test. I had to take a polygraph, which he passed. Forever destroyed my polygraphs. But what was sad about it was that the prosecutors had evidence, among which was his underwear.
His what?
His underwear, which was white. Sent down to the crime lab before there was efforts to reform the crime lab. Crime lab took a pair of underpants, neatly cut out the part that they were going to test, tested it, came back with the result of what kind of blood it was, what was mixed in with it. Then sent the pants back with the hole in it for evidence. So I got ordered to see the evidence, and the prosecutor didn't want me to see the evidence. I had to go to Moffitt Cummings, Judge Moffitt, that yes, indeed, I had a right to see the evidence before it was presented. They presented these underpants with a hole in it. I said, what kind of evidence is that? Got a pair of underpants with a hole in it. Of course, the crime lab had thrown away the piece that they cut out. It was really awful. I mean, I plea bargained it down because they didn't have any, it turned out they didn't have any evidence. I went back and told Maylin Gibson that I probably can't remember his name, but I cut out who's who, and I'd done all this stuff, and I handed it to Maylin Gibson. I said, well, I'm just getting ready to come from New York and read this miscarriage of justice. So we were going to plea bargain. So I went before Moffitt Cummings, present the plea, and Moffitt said, what is this? It was first-degree rape, but dropping the charges, dropping, I can't remember, something, or something. So Moffitt had to, under law, he was supposed to determine whether the plea was factually supported. Moffitt asked me to leave the room while he examined my client, so that if I was factually supported, I said, Judge, I can't leave. I'm his lawyer. So I know, but I want to talk about this in front of you.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah. So that was Moffitt. I had a lot of fun. But anyway, I did some of that.
How did it turn out?
He plea bargained. We got him off. Time served in the county jail. He's been in the county jail about 2 months.
One of the women, who is a wonderful woman, at 12 years old, was raped at 12. Her client, she represented, got him off, and she's seen laughing on 2 separate occasions, laughing at the girl who was raped. Kathy Shelton, that young woman, is here with us tonight. I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself.
Unbelievable. How is it that you can brag? This was about a rape of a 12-year-old girl. And the person accused, Thomas Alfred Taylor, accused of raping this young girl, Kathy Shelton, luring her into a car And then these recordings that had not been reported, but Clinton suggesting that she knew he's guilty, and that, forever changed my view and my faith in lie detector tests. Kathy Shelton joins us now, along with her attorney, Candace Jackson. Welcome all of you to the program, both of you. Kathy, I met you the other night, and first thing I did was give you a hug and say I'm sorry for all you've been through, and I'll say that publicly because it's horrible. Are you there, Kathy? Can you hear me?
Yes. I'm sorry. I didn't know when I was supposed to come in.
No, that's okay. I said I saw you the other night. I gave you a hug. You told me a little bit of your story, and I told you then, and I'll tell you now, it's horrible what you've been through.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And your life hasn't changed, has it? This has impacted you your whole life.
Yes, sir, it has.
Yeah, and it even affected your ability to have children, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes. The doctor told me there's a 99% chance that I couldn't have children.
As a result of this rape?
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about Hillary Clinton's involvement. We just heard the tape where, they needed a female lawyer, a fascinating case, and, this guy lured you into a car. To the extent that you feel comfortable, tell us what happened.
I was lured into a car, taken out on a road that I have no idea, screaming and crying, and I was being called all kinds of names, and before it was over, I was pretty much out. But there was another guy involved that they're not bringing up that was under the age of 18, so I guess they can't. But they both raped me, and I remember him saying, "You like it, bitch, don't you?" And
oh my God.
The last thing I remember pretty much is crawling, and they were coming back for me, and I ended up on somebody's porch, and a light came on, and it scared them off. And after that, I went out, and I didn't wake up for 5 days later. I was in a coma.
Now, Hillary
they
said...
had beaten me.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was in a coma because they had beaten me so bad when they were doing it.
Hillary Clinton says in this recording, this guy was accused of raping a 12-year-old. By the way, that's your life. And, of course, he claimed he didn't do it and all this stuff. And then she described the event. She was describing this 10 years after she had defended this rapist and, had a very complacent attitude. I had him take a polygraph, which he passed, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs. And then she laughed. So she's admitting she knew he was guilty or thought he was guilty. What is your reaction to that?
Well, every time I hear Hillary Clinton speak, she says she's for children and women. I think she's a liar because if she was for children, she would have helped me through that. Instead, she put me what no 12-year-old would go through. I had to take a lie detector test. I had to look through a window and identify these guys. I had to take a evaluation at a psychiatrist center. I'm sorry, I forgot what that's called.
Yeah, no, you got it right.
Candace, you want to help me there?
Yeah, because of the vicious lies that Hillary Clinton began telling about Kathy, and it's reflected in the court documents, Hillary Clinton petitioned the court to force Kathy at 12 years old to undergo all kinds of psychiatric interrogations and evaluations based on Hillary Clinton's lies that Kathy at 12 years old was fantasizing about older men, was inviting this to happen to her, romanticized the experience. It was ugly stuff that you would not expect from a feminist.
Let me read to you from a July 28th court affidavit, 1975. She wrote, Hillary Clinton did, that she had been informed the young girl was, quote, emotionally unstable, had a, quote, tendency to seek out older men and engage in fantasizing. I've also been told by an expert child psychologist that children in early adolescence tend to exaggerate or romanticize sexual experiences, and that adolescents in disorganized families, such as the complainants, are even more prone to exaggerate behavior. Now, we've got to keep in mind here, she's acknowledging that she knows or believes the guy's guilty, and yet she is doing everything she can do to further traumatize a young 12-year-old who was raped, that she agrees was raped, that she thinks is raped. Am I wrong in my interpretation, Candace?
That's exactly right. This is one of our very first early examples of Hillary Clinton's lifelong pattern of defending and protecting rapists and abusers of women. This is someone who holds herself out publicly as some kind of champion for women and feminists and engaged in the very tactics that are now banned in most states, the blame the victim of rape tactics that are now protected by most rape shield laws. You would not expect a true women's rights advocate to go after a 12-year-old girl in this kind of way, blaming her as the victim for her rape.
And it gets even worse than that, because she's also, at several points when discussing the crime lab's accidental destruction of DNA evidence that tied Taylor to the crime, she's heard laughing, because there was evidence in this case. There was, from what I understand, blood and semen and underwear in this case. Am I wrong?
Absolutely true. The DNA test had been confirmed, had proved his guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt. And
I want you to backtrack here. In other words, they had matched his blood, his semen, from her underwear in this case. That was already done.
Correct. His semen and Kathy's blood were on the underwear, had been tested, had confirmed Taylor's guilt, and Hillary Clinton pulled a fast one and a dirty trick and sent the rest of the underwear with that sample cut out to her own expert in New York. And when that came back clean, because it was the rest of the underwear that did not have the samples on it.
Who cut it out?
To go back into court.
Who cut it out?
Hillary and her expert.
In other words, you gave them the sample so they could double check the crime lab's proof positive that it was Kathy's blood and his semen. So you sent the evidence so they could double check it, and then they cut away the evidence that was there, or the part of the underwear that had the evidence, and then, in other words, they basically removed the evidence and sent it back. Sorry, we can't test it because it's gone.
Exactly, and that's what set her up to get him a plea bargain to get off with 2 months of time served.
So a rapist was set free. Did he ever rape again? Do we know?
Not that we've confirmed.
No.
But these kind of predators don't do it once.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Candace, I heard he did one more time. Somebody had told me that, but I'm not sure it's true. I'm not
okay
exactly sure, so I don't want to say
let me put you guys on hold for 1 second here, because I just want to come back and I know we have a lot to get to. I just want to reiterate exactly what happened here so the audience knows what Hillary Clinton did, the great champion of women's rights. All right, 800-941-SEAN. We'll continue more with Kathy Shelton and her attorney, Candace Jackson, and much, much more. 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number.
We know you never want to miss the Sean Hannity Show. And now you never have to. Just sign up for Hannity Headlines. A bite-sized version of the show that you can take with you on your laptop, your mobile phone, everywhere you go. Even to your liberal in-laws' place in Vermont.
Yeah.
And after a few hours of that, you'll be glad you brought Sean along. To sign up today for Hannity Headlines, go to Hannity.com. More Hannity, less big government. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
All right, 25 now till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN. If you're just joining us, the harrowing story. I mean, it is unbelievable. 1975 is the year, the same year that Hillary Clinton married Bill Clinton. Anyway, a woman by the name of Kathy Shelton was raped by a man named Thomas Alfred Taylor. He's accused of raping this child after luring her into a car. Anyway, Hillary Clinton is heard on tape bragging a number of times about how she defended him. First, she said, well, I was asked as a favor to do this, and I defended the guy. And then she goes off to describe many things. And describing the events a decade after they happened, Clinton's very conversational. We just played it in the last half hour, casual, complacent toward her attitude towards her client. I had him take a polygraph, which he passed, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraph, she added with a laugh. Clinton can also be heard laughing at several points when discussing the crime lab's accidental destruction of DNA evidence that actually showed the semen of this guy Taylor and Kathy's blood. Unbelievable. And we continue now with Kathy, and her advocate, Candace Jackson, is also with us. I thought you were an attorney. I apologize if you're not.
Yeah, attorney and advocate.
Okay, you got it. Thank you. Anyway, listen, let me go back and reiterate what happened here. So this horrible, horrible rape happens to Kathy Shelton when she's 12 years old. So Hillary Clinton, the defendant, wants a female lawyer. So as, quote, a favor, she's brought in as the attorney in this case. So on tape, 10 years later, after he gets this guy off with time served, she's laughing at the fact and mocking the fact, well, I had him take a polygraph, which forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs, ha, 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 which means she thought he was guilty. And then she's laughing at several points discussing the crime lab's accidental destruction of DNA evidence. The crime lab had already determined that it was Kathy's blood on the underwear and this guy Taylor's semen on the underwear. That's correct, right?
That is correct.
And then after the crime lab report pinpointed that it was him and it was Kathy's blood and it was Kathy's underwear, well, then the Clinton defense team, they wanted the evidence to test independently, correct?
Right.
Okay, so you gave over all of the evidence to them to have it tested independently. In other words, the crime lab gave the underwear to the defense team.
To take to their own lab, their own expert, right?
Right. Okay. Now, I assume everything was intact at that point. Is that true?
I believe the prosecution crime lab had cut a sample out, but it was Hillary and her expert who then made sure that the only remaining piece of the underwear to be tested was carefully cut around so that there was no evidence on the sample that the defense tested.
So, in other words, you think that they very corruptly, purposefully, tried not to test where the semen and the blood would be. Is that a fair statement?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Hillary herself verifies that in the way that she laughs about saying, we're going to bring this guy out from New York to, supposedly avoid this miscarriage of justice. Ha, ha, ha.
And then on top of that, in a court affidavit, Hillary Clinton, then the attorney for the accused rapist, tried to create the image that Kathy was emotionally unstable at 12 years of age, had a tendency to seek out older men and engage in fantasizing. Quote, I have also been told by an expert in child psychology that children in early adolescence tend to exaggerate and romanticize sexual experiences, and that adolescents and disorganized families, such as the complainants, are even more prone to exaggerate behavior. So she basically tried to blame the victim, Kathy, in this case.
She did, and Kathy can tell you about how that impacted her. Days upon days upon days in a row, she was in tears, unable to function because of being blamed and smeared and lied about by Hillary Clinton. It re-traumatized her beyond the trauma of the original violent rape.
Kathy, let me ask you, how did that impact you as she tried to blame you, the victim? Look, I only know what I was like at 12 years old. Most of it, all we cared about was sports. I doubt you knew much about anything in terms of what was happening to you. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes.
Yeah. So this was just a lie, an elaborate lie to smear you.
Yes, sir, it was.
Yeah. Then it was a lie perpetrated on you by Hillary Clinton.
Yes, it was.
What is the impact on you? What was the impact then? What's the impact today?
The impact then was she put me through so much that I had my mom to take me away from it, and I said, whatever happens, happens. I can't go back. I can't take it no more. I was totally crying, and I couldn't even talk to them from crying because they were accusing me of so much stuff that was untrue. And now today it impacts me that I hear her say she's for women and children, and I think back to that day, if she was for women and children, why didn't she help me? She's laughing, saying she knows it happened. Why didn't she help me through that instead of making me feel like, I've been hit twice instead of once. I've been hit with rape, and I've also been hit with telling I'm a liar when I'm not.
So really you got hit a lot of different ways here. Not only were you raped at the tender age of 12 years old, no woman should ever have to experience that. That has impacted you in many ways for the rest of your life. You are no longer you were not physically able to have children as a result of this violent rape. And then you get called, basically, they blame you and say that you somehow created all of this in your mind, which is like a psychological torture for somebody. And then she's out there saying she's the champion of women, and you're listening to her. I can only imagine how you feel.
It's not good.
Candace?
Sean, I think the record needs to be very clear. As an attorney, I can answer the feedback that you get from a lot of Hillary Clinton defenders out there. Well, she was just defending a client. What was she supposed to do as a lawyer? Let me tell you, there are lots of ways that you can zealously defend a client, and even a client who is a horrible criminal, without engaging in the vicious, callous tactics of blaming the victim, smearing her, and putting her through double hell the way that Hillary Clinton chose to do.
I just don't know what else you can say about this. Now, you know, Kathy, you recounted not only the brutal assault, but you were knocked into a coma. You needed stitches around, you know, your private area when you had stitches down there when you woke up, and that you were torn up so bad. And that's when the doctors told you, even at the age of 12, there was a 99% chance you could not have children. And that had to be even more devastating to you.
Yes, it was. It was very devastating because when I was young, I always wanted to be a math teacher and have a child of my own because I love kids. And I found out that I couldn't have children, and then it just kind of, I tried to go to Votech, and right before I graduated, I just pulled out of it. I was dramatized.